Celebrities, they're just like us. No, not really. So let's look at the over-entitled ones who've been kicked out or banned from places. First up, James Corden. The talk show host was banned from Balthazar, a popular New York City restaurant, for his alleged mistreatment of the staff that worked there. The restaurant's owner publicly called him out for his rude behavior, describing him as like the most horrific customer in the restaurant's history. He explained in an Instagram post that on one occasion, Corden was very nasty to the staff after he found a hair in his food, and that on another occasion, he flipped out on the server when they messed up his wife's order. The hair in the food moment, yeah, gross. Basically what happened was that Corden showed a hair to the manager after his meal. He allegedly demanded free drinks and threatened to write a bad Yelp review. Corden was also angry when his wife was served an omelet with egg white in it, and then again when it was remade with home fries instead of a salad. The internet, of course, had a field day with this one, and the ban was later rescinded after Corden actually apologized. Corden admitted to being ungrateful to a server, and he called the ban silly and said he still doesn't feel like he did anything too wrong. He also addressed the incident on The Late Late Show. He said, as some of you, may have seen last week, there were stories about me being banned from a restaurant. He explained that after the owner took to Instagram to share the incident, he thought about doing so himself, but decided to have a more British approach to it all and kept calm and carried on. He continued to say, but as my dad pointed out to me, he said, son, well, you did complain, so you might need to explain. Look, when you make a mistake, you've got to take responsibility. He followed that by explaining his recollection of the events that night and said he has a deep love for that restaurant and that his wife apparently just has a really bad allergy, and considering the servers got the order wrong like 3 times, that he was frustrated. He said his comments were meant to be sarcastic, but they were rude and he regretted it deeply. He said the managers were actually quite lovely about everything and even brought some champagne to the table. The incident highlighted the scrutiny celebrities face regarding their behavior in public. Hugh Grant is next. In Paul King's Paddington 2, Hugh Grant played an egocentric actor named Phoenix Buchanan, a greedy villain given to flights of narcissism. Given what Jon Stewart has said about Grant, it might not have been a stretch for him to play such a character. Grant had a bad reputation and has been taken to task by the press several times in the past for losing his temper on set. Most recently, Grant was actually reported to have yelled very harshly at a woman on the set of Dungeons and Dragons. He assumed that the woman was, a visiting executive, and he was infuriated by her demands. As it turns out, the woman was an on-set chaperone for one of the film's child actors and certainly didn't deserve the attack. Now, back in 2012, however, Grant already recognized this about himself. In a 2015 interview with Vanity Fair, he admitted to throwing a tantrum backstage on The Daily Show right in front of the host Jon Stewart. He confessed saying, I did have a tantrum backstage about once a year. I have a really mega tantrum. And sadly, he witnessed one. In between tantrums, Grant seems to be decent, but he also regularly appears to be in a position where he becomes inexclusively, angry and makes unreasonable demands, of his coworkers. Of course, this was after Stewart had already called the actor out while being interviewed by Stephen Colbert live on stage at the Wellmont Theater in New Jersey. Now, according to the Daily Show host, Grant was like the worst guest he had ever had on his series, and that included some of the political monsters and dictators that he has, deliberately hosted. Miley Cyrus is banned from performing in the Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic Government Commission that oversees public performances banned a concert by Miley Cyrus on morality grounds. The commission said in a statement that it took the action because Cyrus often, undertakes acts that go against morals and customs, which are punishable by Dominican law. Some critics have declared Cyrus's on-stage antics, including twerking and, doing other stuff, as vulgar. Now, Miley Cyrus's twerking has been deemed too offensive for the Dominican Republic government. The singer's Bangers World Tour, sees her actually wearing like a cannabis pattern leotard. Cyrus has also previously, smoked cannabis on stage, which is an illegal act in the Dominican Republic. So in the past, the commission has banned songs it considered vulgar from the country's airwaves. A representative for Cyrus did not immediately respond to a request for comment, and concert, organizers in the Dominican Republic didn't comment on the ban either. Madonna is up. The Alamo Drafthouse movie theater chain has banned Madonna from its theaters after reports that the Queen of Pop was texting during a New York Film Festival screening of 12 Years a Slave. Her Majesty attended the festival screening of Fox Searchlight's Oscar hopeful, posing for photos with director Steve Steve McQueen. Now, during the film though, she was reportedly texting and lashed out at a fellow audience member who tried to get her to stop. According to several outlets, film critic Charles Taylor shared the following story from an audience member at that screening. It said, "Tonight at the New York Film Festival premiere of 12 Years a Slave, I sat behind the unholy trifecta of Jason Ritter, Jay Alexander from America's Next Top Model, and Michael K. Williams from The Wire. Plus, a very mysterious blonde in black laced gloves who wouldn't stop texting on her BlackBerry throughout the first half of the movie. Eventually, a woman next to me tapped her on the shoulder and told her to put her phone away. The blonde hissed back, 'It's for business, enslavers.' I turned to the shoulder tapper and loudly said, 'Thanks,' and gave her a thumbs up. The rest of the movie, I kept thinking about how I wanted to tell the blonde what a disgrace she was. During the standing ovation, the blonde ducked out and Jason Ritter turned around to make commiserating eye contact as Jay Alexander asked, 'Who was that?' Jason then looked down at the floor. His eyes got wide and he picked up an envelope and it showed it to us, Jay, and it said 2 screening tickets, Madonna. And sure enough, we looked to the side of the theater and standing against the wall in black lace gloves was Madonna, the worst person in America. The Draft House chain has had a strict no talking and no texting policy and will eject, people who violate it. So when founder and CEO Tim Lee read reports of Madonna's behavior, he tweeted a tweet that said, "Until she apologizes to movie fans, Madonna is banned from watching movies here." Now, it's unclear if Madonna ever apologized, but honestly, I doubt she cares. Last on my list, I got Janet Jackson, sister to late Michael, and queen of not apologizing. Janet Jackson says she was disinvited from the 2004 Grammys after her wardrobe malfunction scandal with Justin Timberlake at their Super Bowl halftime show that same year. In her documentary titled Janet, the singer reveals she was asked not to come back to the Grammy Awards after Timberlake accidentally stripped her during a Super Bowl performance. Now, on February 1st, 2004, a wardrobe malfunction occurred on stage at the annual NFL Championship. It might have seemed innocent enough, but the infamous moment had devastating consequences on Jackson's career. Jackson was on stage performing, a medley of her hits when fellow pop star Timberlake made a surprise appearance to perform a duet. The pair sang Timberlake's hit Rock Your Body when, at the final line of the song, the former NSYNC member actually pulled off a part of Jackson's costume. Timberlake was supposed to pull away the bustier to reveal a red lace bra. Instead, the garment malfunctioned and the singer exposed Jackson's bare chest instead. Now, the Together Again singer's chest was broadcast to the world with only a small shield to cover her modesty. It was shown for less than 1 second before CBS cut the shot. Though it was, mere milliseconds, Jackson's, partial nudity triggered a wave of outrage across conservative America. It was aired to an audience of around 150 million viewers around the world, and the Federal Communications Commission received more than 500,000 complaints about the performance. The public pearl clutching over Jackson's chest would almost end her career. Janet's ex-boyfriend at the time, Jermaine Dupri, also added, that he quit his role as a member of the Grammys board, after he learned of the injustice. Janet and Dupri actually dated from 2002 to 2009, and he said, "I felt like they were disrespectful to Janet and I resigned at that point." Previously, the Huffington Post reported that Timberlake was allowed to perform after he tearfully apologized for the incident. The CBS chief executive, according to sources, was furious that Jackson didn't make an apology to him. Consequently, Jackson's music career began to suffer. Her songs and music videos were blacklisted from MTV and CBS as per the instruction of parent company Viacom. Now, the cultural impact of Jackson and Timberlake's performance was monumental. The inventors of YouTube even credited the incident, as one of the reasons they launched the platform. The moment also triggered a years-long debate and culture war about, misogyny and the unfair treatment of Jackson.
Johnny Depp's Hollywood journey hasn't always been smooth sailing. From being the face of iconic franchises to getting dropped faster than Jack Sparrow could down a bottle of rum, Depp's career has seen its fair share of drama. Take Pirates of the Caribbean, for instance. Disney decided to part ways with their beloved captain after personal drama made waves. Fans were outraged and petitions flooded in, but the studio stood firm, leaving Depp's swashbuckling days behind. And then came Fantastic Beasts, where Depp's role as the dark wizard Gellert Grindelwald was recast amidst ongoing legal issues. Warner Brothers politely asked him to step down, and just like that, another major franchise said goodbye to one of Hollywood's most charismatic stars. Despite it all, Depp remains a fan favorite. proving that even when Hollywood closes a door, his devoted supporters are ready to kick it back open. After all, you can take the pirate out of the ship, but you can't take the legend out of Johnny Depp. Megan Fox's exit from the Transformers franchise was a jaw-dropper. After dazzling audiences as Michaela Baines in the first two films, Fox found herself on the chopping block before Transformers. Dark of the Moon. What was the culprit? A candid interview where she compared director Michael Bay to a certain infamous historical figure. She described working with him as akin to being on a set run by a nightmare dictator. And let's just say, that didn't sit well with the powers that be. The fallout was swift. Steven Spielberg allegedly told Bay to let her go. And just like that, Rosie Huntington-Whiteley stepped in as Sam's new love interest. Despite Fox's claims that she chose to leave, it was clear that her outspoken nature had ruffled some serious feathers. However, all was not lost. Years later, Fox and Bay reunited for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reboot, proving that sometimes Hollywood feuds can cool down. Fox learned from her past, and while she may have been sidelined, she's back in action and ready to reclaim her spot in the spotlight. Ryan Gosling's method of acting once led to a rather icy exit. Before he charmed audiences in The Notebook and Barbie, Gosling was slated to play the grieving father in Peter Jackson's The Lovely Bones. Gosling, committed to the role, decided the character should weigh 210 pounds. His tactic? Downing melted Haagen-Dazs. When Gosling showed up on set sporting a 60-pound gain, Jackson wasn't pleased. Gosling was given the boot, later quipping, "Then I was fat and unemployed." Saoirse Ronan, who starred in the film, recalled being sad that Gosling wouldn't be around but understood the decision. While Gosling believed his weight gain led to his dismissal, writer and producer Fran Walsh said that Jackson felt Gosling was too young to play the father of a teenager. Eventually, Mark Wahlberg took over the role. Despite the setback, Gosling reunited with Ronan in his directorial debut, Lost River, proving that not all Hollywood stories end on a sour note. Kevin Spacey's Hollywood saga is the stuff of legends, just not the good kind. In a plot twist that would make even Frank Underwood raise an eyebrow, Spacey was unceremoniously dropped from Ridley Scott's All the Money in the World just a month before its release. The film was already in the can, but after some serious allegations surfaced, Scott decided to reshoot all of Spacey's scenes with Christopher Plummer, proving that even Oscar winners can be replaced faster than a bad haircut. But that wasn't his only exit. Spacey also got the boot from House of Cards, where he played a power-hungry politician. Netflix pulled the plug on him quicker than you can say toxic work environment, and he ended up owing a staggering $31 million for breaching his contract. Talk about a costly departure. Despite these dramatic exits, Spacey has hinted at a comeback, recently appearing in a low-budget Italian film. So, while he may have been dealt a rough hand, it seems this actor isn't ready to fold just yet. Jenna Ortega's exit from Scream 7 is a plot twist worthy of a horror flick. Just as fans were gearing up for another round of Ghostface antics, Ortega decided to bow out, citing her busy schedule with Wednesday Season 2. Talk about a scheduling issue. It's like trying to juggle chainsaws while walking a tightrope. Impressive, but risky. Her departure came on the heels of her co-star Melissa Barrera being let go due to some debated social media posts. Ortega's timing was impeccable, leaving everyone wondering if she was just trying to dodge the drama. In true Jenna style, she later remarked on the overly sensitive nature of Hollywood, quipping that the industry has become so touchy-feely that it sacrifices honesty for political correctness. "Am I describing world peace?" she joked, hinting at the absurdity of it all. While fans might miss her in the franchise, Ortega is clearly focused on her blossoming career. So, while Ghostface may be lurking, Jenna is off slaying in her own right. Just not in Woodsboro this time. Jonathan Majors' Hollywood tale took a wild turn that even the best screenwriters couldn't script. Once the rising star of the Marvel Universe as Kang the Conqueror, Majors found himself on the wrong side of a courtroom drama. After being found guilty of misdemeanor altercation and improper conduct, Marvel Studios decided to cut ties faster than you can say multiverse. Just like that, his plans for Avengers, the Kang Dynasty went poof. Talk about a plot twist that left fans gasping. But it didn't stop there. Majors also lost his role in 48 Hours in Vegas, where he was set to portray the legendary Dennis Rodman. Lionsgate must have thought, "We don't need this kind of drama." It's like he was starring in a real-life version of Survivor, and unfortunately, he didn't win immunity. Now, while Majors is eyeing a comeback with an indie film called Merciless, one can't help but wonder if he'll be able to conquer this new chapter. After all, Hollywood loves a good redemption story. Just ask any superhero. Stuart Townsend's exit from The Lord of the Rings is a tale that could rival any epic fantasy. Originally cast as Aragorn, Townsend spent 2 months preparing for the role, only to be given the boot just a day before filming kicked off. Talk about a dramatic plot twist. Rumors swirled that he was acting like a prima donna, skipping training sessions and showing up hours late. No one wants to deal with that when you're about to embark on an epic journey through Middle-earth. In his own words, Townsend was shocked, claiming he was told he wasn't working hard enough. "I love to work, I'm a worker," he exclaimed. But apparently his definition of working hard didn't quite align with Peter Jackson's vision. When Viggo Mortensen stepped in to fill those big boots, he probably felt like he just won the lottery, except someone else had already lost their ticket. Despite the abrupt dismissal, Townsend later quipped about not getting his heart broken over it. After all, in Hollywood, sometimes you're the hero, and sometimes you're just left on the cutting room floor. Christian Bale's journey through Hollywood is a wild ride, complete with unexpected exits. Once upon a time, he was set to play Patrick Bateman in American Psycho *. But guess what? He got fired. The role initially went to Leonardo DiCaprio, who had everyone buzzing. But when Leo took a detour for another project, Bale swooped back in like a bat out of hell. Talk about a second chance. It's like being benched only to score the winning goal at the last minute. Then, there's the infamous Terminator Salvation saga. Bale was caught on tape unleashing a tirade on set, threatening to quit if the cinematographer didn't get the boot for stepping into his eyeline. His outburst was so dramatic it could have been a scene from one of his films. While he later apologized, the incident turned into a meme-worthy moment in Hollywood history. Despite these hiccups, Bale remains a powerhouse in film. He's transformed himself for roles like nobody else, proving that sometimes getting fired might just be the plot twist you need to keep your career thriving.
SNL opening monologues, they're hard. They're the host's chance to connect with the audience, and if it flops, it's usually an indicator of how the rest of the episode will go. But of all of them, there has never been a disaster quite like Martin Lawrence's. You might recognize him from movies like Bad Boys, which is fitting considering not only was he allegedly banned from SNL, it was also rumored that those working there weren't even allowed to say his name after. And the controversial monologue, the second half was cut off in future reruns and replaced with a title card explaining what happened because it was just that offensive. The title card said the speech was frank and lively and nearly cost us all our jobs. Is that true, or is that just some SNL humor? It's up to you. Lawrence later put the cut off portion of his monologue in his comedy special You So Crazy if you want to see it. In addition to the monologue, Lawrence also improv'd during the scripted show, which would sometimes throw off the other actors. There was also rumors that Lorne Michaels just wasn't happy with some of those new lines that he threw in. Sinead O'Connor probably has the most famous SNL controversy in history, as the music artist offended not just the show, but also an entire religion when she clearly ripped up a photo of the then Pope on live TV. So, it's been brought to attention that not everyone involved with the church is as nice as they should be, and this was a conversation in the 90s, but was met with more pushback than it is today, if that makes sense. Talking about it was not encouraged, and calling out the Pope was a big no-go, even though some truly awful things were happening behind closed doors. O'Connor had allegedly told the SNL people that she was going to make a statement with her performance by holding up a picture of a starving person at the end, so that was why the camera perfectly zoomed in. Only that camera wasn't capturing what it thought it was going to capture. It was capturing O'Connor ripping up a picture of the Pope into 3 pieces and throwing them at the camera. At the time, people ripped into the performer for her actions, but a lot of the public opinion has shifted in recent years, especially with the younger generation and all the scandals that have come up. Many people consider O'Connor to have been very brave for her actions, while others stand firm that she shouldn't have done it. Still, a major statement like that doesn't go unnoticed, and it seems the artist was not encouraged to return to SNL. But for the too much portion, one band was banned from the show after bringing a mosh pit into the studio and rocking out so much it caused thousands in property damage. At least that was the rumor for a few decades. The band was fear. They are punk rock and proved it when they and their fans not only broke SNL, but also introduced many average Americans to slam dancing. It's when you dance by purposefully jumping and or slamming into the people near you. In the grainy videos of the performance, people are literally leaping from the stage. It's incredible. People working on the production at the time knew that this would happen, but didn't exactly know what slam dancing was because, well, no Google. Reports from the time say that the performance ended up getting cut short because the production was so worried about further damage and also like maintaining their usual audience. The band wasn't actually a major player in the industry when they appeared, so what were they doing on SNL? It turns out original cast member John Belushi was a fan of theirs. He had left the show in 1979 but was requested to return for a quick cold open in 1981. He would only agree to come back if this band played, and I guess they just really wanted him. Due to the nature of the performance and also the fact that mid-chaos the segment cut away, there were also a lot of rumors out there about what happened. Decades later, those that were there that day cleared a lot of the air. It turns out there wasn't actually thousands in property damage, even though that sounds better than punk rock band rocks out and destroys absolutely nothing. The band acted professionally and were very nice. They just happened to cause a lot of chaos and frighten some audience members that were not expecting to hear punk rock. But hey, the performance took place on the most fitting night that it could, Halloween. Not a cast member, but a frequent guest performer, Andy Kaufman, got himself voted off the show. Kaufman was a little bit of everything kind of entertainer, and his bits were the kind of thing where you get it or you don't. Some people thought he was absolutely hilarious. Lorne Michaels clearly enjoyed his work considering how much he was on the show, but mixed reviews from audiences kept coming in, and it got to the point where executive producer Dick Ebersol asked audiences whether or not they should keep Kaufman around. They issued phone numbers to call with their votes and got a surprisingly high turnout. Over 35,000 votes were placed, and unfortunately, the Dump Andy number got more calls and the show was forced to officially let the comedian go. It was clear that SNL cast members weren't hoping for that result. Many of them later said they wished things turned out differently, and even when the vote was started, the Dump Andy number was read faster, so it would be harder for viewers to get that one right when they called. A week after banishment, Kaufman purchased airtime to beg America to bring him back to SNL, but he never made it back to his comedy home. Actor Adrian Brody was allegedly banned from the show after adding his own little bit of improv to the broadcast. Improv on a scripted sketch show is already not encouraged / unwelcome, but when that improv can also be seen as culturally offensive, yeah, pack it up and go home. In 2003, Brody hosted the show with musical guest Sean Paul. Paul is a Jamaican musician, and so Brody's bright idea was to introduce Paul while he was wearing a dreadlocked wig and speaking in a Jamaican accent. 2 decades later, though, the context surrounding this bit have actually changed. Brody is back on top of Hollywood right now after a stellar performance in The Brutalist, and when you're on top of the world, all your past scandals resurface, so Brody was recently asked about this SNL moment. It was originally thought that Brody just did it himself, and it's true the bit was his idea, but apparently the show provided the costume. Brody clarified that he believed Lorne Michaels just didn't appreciate him embellishing the moment a bit, but they let him do it. Brody isn't sure if he's actually banned from SNL, but he doesn't think so. He hasn't been invited back, but he does have a big movie out right now, and he's winning some major awards, so who knows? Steven Seagal's ban came from a place of just not being funny, at least according to Tim Meadows, who said this in Live from New York. Meadows also claimed that Seagal was very critical of the creative teams, which isn't a good look for someone who's only on the show for like a week. Seagal also allegedly refused anything that made him look bad, and it got to a point where the cast considered going without a host that week. Lorne Michaels himself even addressed him as the biggest jerk that ever visited the show. When Nick Cage hosted, he joked that he might take that title, to which Michaels said, no, that would be Steven Seagal. For years, Chevy Chase was rumored to have been banned from the show. He was the only original cast member to have this happen to them. Chase is no stranger to controversy, from his sometimes insensitive jokes and remarks to being called out by old co-workers for bringing bad vibes or just being rude on set. Chase was the first of the SNL cast to leave the show. His departure was successful, and he went on to become a comedy legend, especially known for playing Clark Griswold in the successful National Lampoon's Vacation movies. Rumors from his SNL days say that Chase began fighting with other cast members behind the scenes and was generally unpleasant to work with. Some of these rumors have been denied now, but one Chevy Chase SNL moment sticks out. An alleged fist fight with Bill Murray backstage right before they were set to go live in 1978. Apparently, when Chase returned to host the show that week, he had an attitude and him and Murray were just not getting along. Allegedly, exchanging verbal blows throughout the week that eventually culminated in physical ones in the hallway right before the show was set to start. Things eventually smoothed over and Chase was able to get out for his opening monologue, but still a rough evening. All this talk about Chase being banned, and you must be wondering, well, why is he set to appear in the 50th special, or why he cameoed in the show so many times? Turns out, no one is actually ever banned from SNL. Show creator Lorne Michaels has since come out saying that the show has never actually banned anybody. I know, I'm sorry, false advertising. The reason is because the show keeps up with the world, and if something is trending, they're gonna work with it. Spitting at police, that's an intense phrase if I've ever heard one, so let's start with that. This allegedly happened in 2008. Again, it's all alleged because, well, I wasn't there. I was 7 and I have never been on the airline where this happened, aka British Airways. But the subject in question, the person this story centers around, was supermodel Naomi Campbell. The reason she was so upset was because of missing luggage. Missing luggage sucks, no matter who you are. It all happened before the flight even left though. She somehow realized that her bags weren't making it on with her and refused to let the plane leave without them. It got to a point where police had to come onto that plane to try and defuse the situation, but that clearly didn't work because the supermodel was escorted off after spitting at the officer. She was banned from the airline. Didn't last very long though, like 5 years later she was back on a flight, much to the disappointment of the airline staff. But this wasn't actually the first time that Campbell got into an altercation on a plane. A decade prior, in 1998, she got into an altercation with fellow passengers, and this one looks like it happened midair. Campbell was asleep on the flight, and then people tried to take pictures of her. She got upset with them, and things escalated to the point where she tried to rip the camera from the person's hand. Khabib Nurmagomedov was set to take a flight in January of this year. He was sat in the emergency exit row, and that was apparently a problem. In a video taken of the incident, a manager is seen speaking to the MMA star and telling him that he had 2 options: change seats or exit the flight. He remarked that the treatment and options weren't fair and he didn't want to change seats. For that reason, he was escorted off. He was honestly pretty respectful about the whole thing, in my opinion. He did get up and exit calmly when he realized that the airline wouldn't budge. He was booked onto a later flight. Once the internet heard about the incident, people were quick to point out that of everyone on that plane, he actually might have been the best choice for the emergency exit row, but looking into why he was asked to leave, apparently when the flight attendant came around to ask the standard exit row questions like, "Can you help people in case of emergency?" or "This is what you do in case of emergency," she had to explain it to the fighter a few times. English isn't his first language, but he can speak it, though he did eventually understand what the attendant was asking him and confirmed that he understood. She felt it would be better if he were moved to another seat, and well, you know what happened after. Probably one of the most impressive track records when it comes to airport arrests belongs to that of Snoop Dogg. So the year's 2006, and 3 airport incidents happened in this one year. The biggest of the trio was him and members of his entourage were trying to get into the VIP lounge at Heathrow Airport. Some people had the tickets to get in, but some people only had economy tickets, so they weren't eligible for entry. People in the group got mad and pushed their way in. Workers obviously protested this and said that the group would not be able to board their flight. Police were called and things escalated to the point where stuff started getting thrown. Nasty words, bottles of alcohol from duty free, and even, in one case, an officer. A quote I found was that a policeman was thrown like a rag doll, and that really just paints the picture of the state of that room for me. Allegedly, it took 4 officers to get Snoop Dogg in handcuffs, there were many injuries, and this all unfolded in front of patrons already in the VIP lounge, so dinner and a show. So that was April. October rolls around and Snoop Dogg was arrested at Bob Hope Airport after he was found to be in possession of a firearm and the green leaves. He was scheduled to appear in court in December for that one, but right before that, in November, CBC News reported that he was charged with a felony for trying to board a plane with a collapsible baton, which is deemed a weapon. He said it was a prop for a future video that he was going to shoot later. However, he did plead guilty and was sentenced to 3 years probation and 160 hours of community service. A decade ago, Kate Moss was removed from her flight to London. She apparently hid some vodka in her bag and drank it, something you can't do. She also tossed some insulting words at the airline staff in her intoxicated state. Allegedly, she got into it with a fellow passenger, but luckily for the most part, the other passengers seemed to be unbothered, or just like less bothered by the supermodel. One person even described her as kind of funny and said that the flight attendants were overreacting. The police did respond to the incident, but the outcome of this was pretty tame in comparison to some other airport incidents. After it all went down, passengers from the flight even came to the defense of the model. A clash over phones and allegedly words with friends had actor Alec Baldwin escorted off his flight in 2011. Hey, anything can happen. So you know, when you're on a flight and the flight attendants ask people to put away their devices, but then there's like that few minutes where the plane doesn't actually take off, so everyone just pulls them out again? That's what this seems like it was. After it all was over, Baldwin explained that he felt singled out by the flight attendant. However, the attendant's story paints a different picture. Either way, it's clear that Baldwin was asked to put his phone away in the middle of words with friends, things escalated, and he was removed from the flight and placed on a later one. The in-between stuff, we'll get into it. Baldwin's story was, he was singled out and asked to put his phone away, while other people got to use theirs still. He did admit that the situation got the better of him. Reps for the airline added some more details, claiming that not only did Baldwin refuse to turn off his device, he allegedly decided to take it into the washroom and slammed the door so hard the cockpit crew heard it through their closed door. He was also allegedly using negative words towards the airline staff and being generally unpleasant. But if you thought words with friends was an interesting catalyst for an in-flight argument, get ready for sagging pants. Billy Joe Armstrong of Green Day boarded a flight in 2011, but a flight attendant was not appreciative of the man's fashion choice of the day. Some airlines, this one included, they don't have like a super strict dress code. However, they do want passengers dressed appropriately to be around, well, young people and the public in general. And that doesn't include sagging pants. Armstrong was the first to break the news of his plane removal, tweeting about it in real time. According to an account of the incident, he had boarded the plane only to be approached by an attendant and asked to pull his pants up. Upon refusal, he was told the pants go up or he's off. And from the end result of this day, one can only imagine that the pants just had to stay down. Things went a bit different for another intoxicated celebrity, Blac Chyna, but her situation seems like it was just a bit different. Whereas Moss just tried to serve her own alcohol and said some mean words, apparently Blac Chyna got into an intense verbal fight with the gate attendant. But that wasn't the main reason she was turned away. Allegedly, she also just smelled intoxicated. After refusing to allow her to board the aircraft, she was redirected to Saxon Pub. The problem was, that was closing, she really couldn't seem to catch a break this day. She then allegedly got into an argument with the bartender, then that ended in the police arriving to help escort the star from the building. She wasn't having a great time and refused to walk and was generally uncooperative. She was also found with some capsule substances in her purse, so it's clear that she was just having a bad day. She did post bail at $8,000 in addition to some counseling and evaluations. E-Online wrote on a report that was filed at the time that claimed the star was charged with a third-degree felony for having the stuff on her. Thankfully, she did have someone looking out for her in the end. Then boyfriend Rob Kardashian posted a photo shortly after her arrest of them FaceTiming. I can say that she is doing much better in 2025. She's engaged and highly successful in her fields.
Justin Bieber got kicked out of Coachella. This will be etched in the memories of music fans for years to come. Justin Bieber, who was just 21 years old at the time, had been attending the festival with his then girlfriend Hailey Baldwin. Bieber attempted to watch a performance by his friend and Six God Drake from the artist VIP area. According to reports, Bieber had not been given the proper credentials to access the VIP area, and when he tried to enter, he was stopped by security. What happened next is somewhat disputed, but it's reported that Bieber became belligerent and argumentative with the security guards, refusing to leave the area. The situation allegedly escalated to the point where Bieber was physically removed from the festival grounds by security personnel. A video of him getting thrown out started circulating, and people couldn't get enough of it. The incident was widely reported in the media, with many outlets publishing photos and videos of Bieber being escorted out of the festival. He was literally put into a chokehold before getting thrown into, the curb. Not even an army of believers could protect Justin from it. Bieber told the guards that he had been personally invited to the show by Drake, a fellow Canadian, and got into an argument with the Coachella staff. Sources told the gossip site that Coachella security put Bieber in that chokehold during the argument in order to get him out. Anyway, the Coachella incident sparked a heated debate among fans and critics, with some defending Bieber's behavior as, a justified response to overly aggressive security, while others condemned his actions as entitled and disrespectful. In the aftermath of the incident, Bieber took to social media to apologize for his behavior, saying he had, let his emotions get the best of him and promised to just do better in the future. The incident marked a turning point in Bieber's career as he began to transform from his teenage heartthrob image to a more mature and introspective artist. In the years since, Bieber has spoken publicly about his struggles with fame, mental health, and substance dependency issues, and has used his platform to advocate for social justice and awareness. Justin Bieber got kicked out of a Miami Beach nightclub in 2014. Justin Bieber was involved in an incident at a Miami Beach nightclub called Live Nightclub. Live Nightclub is a popular nightlife destination in Miami Beach, known for its high-end atmosphere and celebrity clientele. On the night of January 23rd, Bieber was in town for a concert and decided to visit the club with his entourage. According to eyewitnesses, Bieber and his group arrived at the club around 2 a.m. and were escorted to a VIP table. However, things quickly took a turn. Bieber allegedly became belligerent and started arguing with the club's staff and security. The exact details of the dispute are kind of unclear, but it's reported and alleged that Bieber was presented with a $10,000 tab for his group's drinks and bottle service. Bieber allegedly refused to pay the bill, claiming that he had already paid for the drinks and that the club was trying to kind of rip him off. Ew, it's kind of giving broke. But no, for real, if I ever rack up a $10,000 tab at a bar or a club, call the police on me and send me to AA. The situation escalated when Bieber's entourage got into a confrontation with the club's security personnel. Witnesses described the scenes as chaotic, with Bieber's friends and bodyguards basically pushing and shoving the security guards. Eventually, the club's management had had enough and decided to kick Bieber to the curb and out of the club. Now, legend has it that someone asked, so how are you gonna hate from outside of the club when you can't even get in? Anyway, witnesses reported that Bieber was visibly intoxicated, stumbled out of the club surrounded by his friends and bodyguards. The incident made headlines the next day, and many outlets reporting on Bieber's behavior. The club's management later released a statement saying that Bieber had been kicked out for just being unruly and disrespectful to the staff and other patrons. The incident was just one of several controversies that Bieber was involved in during 2014. The incident led to widespread criticism, with many fans and critics just expressing concerns about his well-being and maturity. Justin Bieber got kicked out of a Paris hotel in 2013. On December 17, 2013, Justin Bieber was involved in an incident at a very luxurious Le Royal Maison Raffles Hotel in Paris, France. Le Royal Maison Raffles, if I'm pronouncing that right, is a 5-star hotel located in the heart of Paris. Bieber was staying at the hotel while on tour in Europe, and according to some sources, Bieber and his entourage arrived at the hotel around 3 a.m. after a night out in the city. However, things went sideways when Bieber allegedly became confrontational and started arguing with the hotel staff and security personnel. The exact details of the incident are slightly unclear, but it's alleged that Bieber was given a warning by hotel staff about the noise level coming from his room. Bieber allegedly refused to comply and continued to make noise, prompting the staff to call security. Witnesses described the incident as loud, scary, and threatening, with Bieber's friends and bodyguards getting a little too handsy with the staff. Eventually, the hotel's management had just had enough, decided to kick Bieber and his entourage out of the hotel. Now, witnesses reported that Bieber was visibly upset and stormed out of the hotel surrounded by his friends and bodyguards. The incident made headlines the next day, of course, with many outlets reporting on Bieber's, horrible behavior. The hotel's management later released a statement just saying that Bieber had been kicked out for being rude, distasteful, and hostile towards the staff and crew there. This whole story is a little disputed though, because some claims are that Bieber didn't get kicked out, and instead he actually left on his own account because they were lacking security there. Apparently hundreds of fans gathered outside and inside the lobby of the hotel, and the hotel wasn't prepared for that, which is kind of weird because in 2013, Bieber was basically he was it. He was the superstar. You would think they would have been over prepared. Anyway, according to this account, guests were super unhappy that there was so much noise coming from fans. Allegedly, Bieber even encouraged the fans. A source said there were kids everywhere everywhere screaming and shouting, and the other guests just didn't like it. I mean, this particular hotel apparently has hosted a lot of big names, including the likes of Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, and even the royal family. So again, why were they not prepared? Justin Bieber got kicked out of a Rio de Janeiro nightclub in 2013. Bieber was in there for a concert, basically as part of his Believe tour. After the show, he decided to visit a local nightclub called Centauros. According to eyewitnesses, Bieber arrived at the club around 2 a.m. and was escorted to the VIP area. Bieber allegedly became involved in an altercation with a photographer who was trying to take his picture, of course. It's alleged that Bieber became agitated when the photographer refused to stop taking his picture. Bieber allegedly then punched the photographer in the face, causing a scene, and the situation escalated when the club's security personnel intervened to try and break up the fight. Bieber allegedly resisted and became combative with the guards. Now eventually Bieber just got kicked out. Witnesses reported that Bieber was visibly upset and just stormed out of the club, kind of yapping on his way out. The incident made headlines the very next day, with many outlets reporting on Bieber's brawl. Now at first it was suspected that this club was actually a brothel, and Bieber was seen leaving with 2 females when he got kicked out, but it was later revealed that it's not a brothel and more of an old-fashioned gentleman's club, which kind of sounds the same. Their words, not mine, okay? So 2013 was just a wild time for young Bieber. Last up, Justin Bieber was kicked out of a New York City nightclub on November 4th, 2012. Justin Bieber was involved in an incident at a nightclub in New York City. Bieber was 18 years old at the time and was visiting New York basically for a concert. After the show, he decided to visit a nightclub called Lavo. According to sources that were there, Bieber arrived at the club around 1 a.m. and was escorted to the VIP area. Bieber allegedly became involved in an altercation with a club goer who was just trying to take his photo. It's reported that Bieber became annoyed when the club goer refused to stop taking his picture. Bieber allegedly pushed the club goer, causing a huge scene, of course, and this situation escalated when the club security intervened to try and break up the fight. Bieber allegedly resisted and became very combative with the security guards. Eventually, he was just told to leave and basically was kicked out of the club. Again, the incident made headlines the next day, of course. This was just another moment in that year where it had everyone talking about just how immature Justin was. But I mean, he was very young, so can we really blame him? Justin's, a full-blown adult now, so hopefully we don't see headlines like this for 2025, but what do you guys think? Is he due for a public kickout or meltdown? Will he stay low-key this year? Let me know.
Would you have the courage to call Beyonce stupid to her face? One man certainly had no issue doing that when he refused to allow the singer on a tour of the Egyptian pyramids and even allegedly banned her from ever returning. It was a whole thing, so stick around for the details. The man in question was Dr. Zahi Hawass. He is a popular tour guide as he knows the pyramids very, very well. For years, he's been the Minister of Tourism and Antiquities of Egypt. He campaigns for stolen Egyptian artifacts, and he is, in general, an archaeologist, described by many as Indiana Jones. It's clear the man knows what he's talking about when it comes to the ancient Egyptians, and who wouldn't want a personal tour led by Indiana Jones? He does have another popular unofficial nickname, which is Gatekeeper of the Pyramids. Though this might not be official, he has no problem exercising his right to ban those he deems unworthy of the space, and that list shockingly added Beyonce's name back in 2013. Dr. Hawass said he found the singer rude after she allegedly showed up late to their meeting, and then there was a disagreement over photography. The doctor claimed that he and the artist had agreed to meet at 3 p.m., but Beyonce showed up after that. When he requested an apology, apparently the artist, in his words, didn't open her mouth. Now, that wasn't enough for him to just refuse the tour right then. There was another incident that really created the problems. Beyonce, of course, had a guard with her for safety reasons, but in addition to them, apparently brought a photographer as well because she wanted to do a goddess-themed photo shoot while there. The thing is, the doctor also brought a photographer, and this seemed to be a bit of a problem. He claims that when his photographer started taking pictures, Beyonce's guard attempted to stop them, and it resulted in some pushing and almost having their camera taken away. This incident pushed the Doctor's anger over the edge, and therefore the star lost her spot on his tour. That, plus she was also allegedly being rude. His send-off to the star was something not many people can say they've done before. Apparently, he said Beyonce was stupid and then just left. There was also the matter that Beyonce had shown up in all white because she was having a goddess-themed shoot. Dr. House even asked her when she arrived if she was trying to be Cleopatra, which Beyonce actually found funny. Of course, anyone allegedly getting banned from an ancient historical site would be a big deal, but when that person is international music artist Beyonce, there's going to be headline upon headline. Of course, news of Beyonce's banning made it back to her team, so we do have a response from the artist, and it just made the whole situation a little bit stranger. According to her team, this incident never happened, and said the whole thing was lies and more lies. Hey, even if the incident did happen, it definitely didn't take place in 2013 like the initial article suggested. Beyonce's statement shared that the last time the singer had been in Egypt was in 2009, and there are photos of her there at that time. When this Beyonce ban news, which was originally reported by the UK news site Independent back in November of 2013, the article made it sound like this incident had happened very recently, but that wasn't the whole truth. Dr. House is a pretty controversial character on his own, without getting into too many details, once calling those with opposing theories pyramidiates. Oh my god. Pyramidiates. Yeah, sure. Once calling those with opposing theories pyramidiates, and I will admit, that's kind of funny, no notes there, extra points for creativity. Anyways, he was widely celebrated for his efforts in the archaeology world, but he was also deemed to be very controlling and overbearing, even egotistical by some. It appears that in a 2013 interview, the man was simply reminiscing on his past encounter with Beyonce from 2009, and if the account is true, it's certainly eventful enough to remember after all this time. Though this alleged incident didn't take place in the year the Independent article came out, accounts from 2009, they do exist. E! News reported that locals spoke to the press at the time. One journalist got the statement that the doctor did get angry with the singer and stopped being diplomatic. This account also claimed that he called Beyonce a stupid person that didn't understand anything, or that she just didn't want to understand anything. Either way, the pair clearly did not end their interaction well. It's unclear how Beyonce responded to the insults against her. Maybe they were said after the pair had separated, who knows. Despite the alleged rough end to the tour, things clearly started well enough as the pair were pictured together in front of the Sphinx reading from a book. Beyonce even made her way into one of the pyramids and sang Ave Maria. She said it was the clearest acoustic she's ever heard, and she could have stayed there forever. I mean, if she really is banned, that would cause a problem. Despite not making overly public returns to the country, Beyonce has used Egyptian mythology and symbolism in her shows and performances since. People are saying Beyonce has been kicked out of the country music scene despite the success of her latest album, Cowboy Carter. After winning the Grammy for Best Country Album and Album of the Year this year, Beyonce has been attacked from all angles. From those that didn't like the album, to those that did, but just didn't think this was Beyonce's best work. The singer has probably heard it all. A lot of people are just angry with the star for taking on the country genre in the first place. Beyonce, for a long time, has been primarily an R&B, pop, hip-hop artist. Cowboy Carter was her big jump in the country music scene, but not the first time she's tried it out. People are very upset that Beyonce seemingly tries out a genre and then wins everything for it. It does look odd. If you aren't aware of her country music roots, it would seem like she's just trying out genres to have a little bit of everything in her music library. Those that have really taken the theories far, though, even accuse award shows of being rigged so Beyonce can have an award for every genre. But again, Cowboy Carter might be Beyonce's first full country piece, but it's not the first time she's expressed a love for the genre. On her 2016 album Lemonade, she released the country-leaning track Daddy Lessons. In 2007, a rumor was circulating that Beyonce's next album was going to be all country. It turned out that it really wasn't. Her next album was I Am Sasha Fierce, but the rumor likely came from the fact that Beyonce had spoken out about her love for country music and the fact that she had recently done a country rendition of her song Irreplaceable at the AMAs with country artist Sugarland. Truly, it was a matter of time though before she was going to come out with a Cowboy Carter. I mean, Beyonce was born and raised in Houston, Texas. Country music is in your bones. In 2024, the Country Music Awards shocked everyone though when they didn't award Beyonce with any awards or even nominations. People weren't exactly being shy about their distaste for her taking on the genre, but outright refusing to acknowledge the impact her album had was another thing entirely. Beyonce's song Texas Hold'em was huge. The Bayhive was hopeful that Beyonce would become the first black woman to get shortlisted for Album of the Year. Of course, that didn't happen in the end. Not to say that those that were nominated were undeserving, because many great country albums have been released last year, but what's interesting is that the CMAs might have had a hand in the creation of the very album that they ended up snubbing. In 2016, Beyonce performed her song Daddy Lessons at the CMAs with the Chicks, formerly known as Dixie Chicks. The performance was widely criticized. Lead singer of the Chicks, Natalie Maines, even spoke out about the treatment Beyonce was subject to after, calling it disgusting. Beyonce was the one in the end to connect the 2016 show to the 2024 album. In an Instagram post about Cowboy Carter, Beyonce wrote that the album was born out of an experience that she had years ago where she did not feel welcome. The experience made the artist want to take a deeper dive into the history of country, and now we have it in Cowboy Carter. Though she lost out on nominations at the Country Music Awards, she got 12 at the People's Choice Country Awards, which was, funnily enough, more than anyone else that year.
Coming in at number 10, Kenya Moore. The Real Housewives of New York star ruffled some feathers at a restaurant and was kicked out for changing her baby's diaper in their establishment. Kenya dished about the incident on Instagram last year, saying that she was super embarrassed that she had no idea that there was a rule against changing your baby in a restaurant in New York City. She shared the post and promoted an app for moms that helped them navigate through motherhood, joking that she used the app to learn about other places where she can't change her baby's diaper. To be fair, I didn't know this was some kind of unwritten rule. I mean, I'm not a mom, so why would I? But I don't know, I just figured that it would be allowed. Also, I don't know if she was changing the diaper in the bathroom or in the dining room. If it was the latter, I understand her getting kicked out, but if not, then why? Sorry, Kenya. At number 9, Stuart Rahr. Billionaire philanthropist Stuart Rahr is no longer welcome at a popular restaurant thanks to his poor behavior. After throwing a bit of a tantrum at Midtown's Nobu 57, Stuart Rahr is no longer welcome at that location, nor any other Nobu restaurant. It was reported that Rahr made quite the scene after not being able to be seated at his favorite table. According to sources, the billionaire was caught trying to pay off guests in order to secure his favorite spot, and when caught, he fired back at a manager using some pretty colorful language. According to the restaurant staff, Rahr arrived at the restaurant late, and upon his arrival he marched up to his table and demanded that the people sitting there leave because it was his spot. I can't tell if this guy sounds more like Sheldon Cooper in this scenario or a toddler. He also sent angry emails to the restaurant executives and added several A-list celebrities to the thread, and even went back to the restaurant to harass staff. In the end, he got banned for life, and it looks like you're never gonna get your spot back, Stu. In at 8, Ruby Rose. Apparently Ruby Rose caused such a ruckus at a restaurant in 2016 that the restaurant's owner had to kick her out. While dining at the Rebellion Bar and Urban Kitchen, Ruby threw quite a tantrum and even threw french fries at staff. But her outburst wasn't necessarily unwarranted. According to Ruby, she had been waiting for her food for over 90 minutes, which would already anger a customer, but she was also getting egged on by the restaurant's bartender. The bartender was mocking and making fun of Ruby for refusing drinks and made fun of her sobriety. Kind of a dick move. So between the rude bartender and the long wait, Ruby just kind of lost her patience and got pretty mad. Although I don't think that the french fry throwing was really necessary. Coming in at number 7, Aretha Franklin. Aretha Franklin was kicked out of a fast food establishment for probably the dumbest reason ever. The Queen of Soul told her story about having gone to a Johnny Rockets after performing at a sold-out show, and she just ordered a hamburger to go. Seems innocent enough, right? Well, when she got the burger, she decided that she was going to sit down and eat it instead of taking it to go, so she grabbed a table. One of the restaurant's employees didn't accept that and really just started ripping on the singer, saying that she couldn't just find any table she wanted and sit down without permission, and then she was kicked out. I mean, the woman just finished doing a sold-out concert. Let her sit down and eat her burger, for crying out loud. After Aretha told sources about what happened, the employee got a talking to, as the employer said that they were still new and didn't know any better, but sheesh, it was just a burger, dude. dude. At number 6, Jamie Foxx. In 2017, Jamie Foxx and a group of his friends were involved in an altercation at a restaurant that ended up with them getting kicked out. The group was dining at Catch in West Hollywood, a very popular spot because the incident that followed was actually witnessed by Jerry Bruckheimer, Cuba Gooding Jr., and Michael Bay. The incident began when a man went up to Jamie Foxx's table complaining that they were being too loud. One witness claims that the man told them, quote, "You don't want to mess with me, I'm from New York," to which a member of Jamie's group replied, "F you, I'm from Oakland." I don't know what any of that means, but I guess it was bad. Apparently, at this point, the man lunged at Jamie, pulling him down onto a table, and then Jamie turned around and put the guy in a chokehold. After this physical altercation, both Jamie's group as well as the man who provoked them were all asked to leave the restaurant. I understand that both parties were in the fight, but that one guy is the one who started the whole thing in the first place. I feel like he should have been the one who got kicked out since he was the one being unruly in the first place. But that's just my opinion. Halfway through at number 5, Tommy Lee. Musician Tommy Lee and his wife, former Vine star Brittany Ferlin, were thrown out of a high-end restaurant in New Orleans after being unruly. According to an article by TMZ, the couple were looking to dine at the Emerald Lagasse Del Monaco restaurant when an altercation began. Tommy and Brittany entered the restaurant wearing hats, and according to the restaurant's dress code, they aren't allowed to wear them and were asked to take their hats off. This is when Tommy kind of lost his lid, so to speak, and got upset and threw some colorful language about, but eventually removed his hat as they were seated at their table. But it wasn't too long after that an employee came up to them asking about his use of profanity in the restaurant. Tommy got even more frustrated with the staff, and after a long spew of profanities, the restaurant's employees were forced to remove the pair from the premises. A few F-bombs later, the couple were forced to find somewhere else to eat. And at 4, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. With the growing political tensions in the US, there was bound to be a story concerning someone's political views, and this is it. The former White House press secretary who served under President Donald Trump was kicked out of a dining establishment in 2018 because of her connection and support of Trump. The owner of the Red Hen restaurant in Lexington, Virginia, was notified of Sanders' attendance at their farm-to-table meal and asked the press secretary to leave the premises. Owner Stephanie Wilkinson told sources that one of her chefs called her at home to tell her that Sanders was in the restaurant and that there were concerns with her being there. This prompted Stephanie to go over to the restaurant and make the decision to remove Sanders from the premises. The concern was that as the press secretary worked under Donald Trump and was one of his supporters who has defended anti-LGBTQ issues, Stephanie wanted to ensure the comfort and safety of her employees, many of whom identify as part of the LGBT community. Both parties were civil about Sanders' removal, though it did end up attracting a lot of media attention. Coming in at number 3, Rita Ora. Rita Ora is one of the industry's biggest stars, so you wouldn't think that she'd be turned away from a restaurant, but that's exactly what happened to her one day. She spoke about her experience with being kicked out of a restaurant on Jonathan Ross's show along with Ed Sheeran and Gordon Ramsay. According to Rita, she was interested in dining at one of Gordon Ramsay's restaurants because it's so popular, and I mean, it's Gordon Ramsay. Who wouldn't want to dine there? She told her story saying, quote, "I obviously wasn't dressed the part. I walked in was like, ooh, I'd love a little meal, you know? And then they were like, no, this isn't happening for you." Apparently Rita didn't meet the restaurant's dress code, which is supposed to be more formal, and wasn't allowed entry. Rita said that she was wearing a tracksuit and sneakers when she tried to get in, but to be fair, a lot of celebrities, especially rappers, are wearing that too, and it would be considered okay. Either way, she didn't get in that time, but Gordon promised her that she'd be able to dine at his restaurant at some other time. In at 2, Kit Harington. Game of Thrones star Kit Harington was less than chivalrous at a bar in NYC, resulting him in getting removed from the establishment by staff members. According to a report from TMZ in 2018, the King in the North was having a night out at the bar playing pool and drinking to excess. During the pool match, it is said that the actor got a little unruly and belligerent and was asked to leave the premises, which he did. But a little while later, he came back to the bar and at that point had to be forcefully removed from the bar. Kit has since come out to address his excessive drinking, saying that he was having a hard time coping with the end of Game of Thrones, and with that ending, I don't blame him. After filming Wrapped on the HBO show, Kit actually checked himself into rehab for his own well-being and sought out therapy to help him cope with the evolving career. And at number 1, Britney Spears. Back in 2007, during her public fall from grace, Britney Spears put on quite the spectacle, which ended up getting her kicked out of an eating establishment. While dining at the Chateau Marmont, Britney was really giving her compliments to the chef because she seemed to have really enjoyed her food. Maybe a little bit too much. Diners were shocked to see Britney smearing her face with the gourmet food in a show of inappropriate behavior. As a result, she was removed from the premises and has been banned from the restaurant. People who witnessed Britney's behavior said that they wouldn't even expect this kind of thing from teenagers, and even added that royalty have dined at the Chateau Marmont, and this behavior was absolutely unacceptable. Apparently, when Britney arrived at the hotel, she looked out of it, and others even pointed out that she didn't even recognize another famous diner, Victoria Beckham, who also said that Britney was acting weird. Because the Chateau was such a high-profile place, she could have made a better reputation for herself from them, but instead ended up looking way worse.